good to see you today. If we had the privilege of sitting across from each other in a coffee shop having this conversation, what would you be drinking?
Well, if it were in the morning,
Mm-hmm.
I would be having a cappuccino and some kind of pastry, light, flaky pastry.
Lovely.
And if it were in the afternoon, I'd probably have an espresso.
Hmm.
And if it were in the evening, I'd probably have a Campari.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
Well, Jerome, thank you so much for taking the time to be here. I am so excited about your book that has just come out, Autumn in Florence, and your first novel, right? Yeah. So I have a copy on the way. I'm really looking forward to my opportunity to read it, but I would love just for you to share about this book and what is so special about it.
Well, it is special to me,
Mm-hmm.
and it is because someone I talked to at the very beginning, an agent from Boston, suggested that I wanted to write something about the loss of Thea, and he suggested not to write a memoir, and that memoirs are mostly fiction anyway. Just write fiction. And so this is a story about an old guy. Colleen and I used to always call him the old guy. In the book, he's called the professor, il professore. In Italy, many people are called professor. It's just a kind of an honorary nickname, I suppose. And anyway, the main character is one of the main characters is the professor, il professore. And what he is in Florence for is to see if he can find a way with the beauty of Florence to not replace, but to cope with his loss of great beauty and his wife of 50 years. And you're supposed to write novels about things you know about, and that's something I know about.
Yeah.
The old guy, as Colleen and I called him, also thought that if he tried to create something, it would help him cope with this loss, with the grief. And so he brings a copy of Boccaccio's Decameron, which has 100 stories in it. So the old guy has plenty to read while he's there. And it also brings a lot of manuscripts that he's collected, things he's written over the last 50 years. And he's going to try to put together 2 of these stories each day and see if weaving those stories together can reweave his life so that he can carry on. And so each chapter, he's there for 10 days, and each chapter is what happens that day, and then, but woven into that are 2 stories. So it's a frame story. It's a story with 20 stories within it. And like Boccaccio's story, it's a story with 100 stories in it. So there's a lot of play back and forth with Boccaccio. There's the old guy begins to really become part of the city of Florence, whatever the age might be of the person who comes to be his companion. So you'll get a lot about Dante and Galileo and Botticelli and Boccaccio in the story. It's like the stones of the city are whispering to him all the time as he walks along the streets. And what may be for some people may be a distraction, for him it was a kind of healing, because the whispering in the stones got him going again. And it's that's what it's about. It's not really a sad story. It is a story that is about a new life, vita nuova, and And in fact, he talks some about the Vita Nuova, which was one of Dante's first books, a book of poetry. But mostly he talks about Dante's main work of poetry, and it's that's what happens. He remembers how the first times he came to Florence, the old guy, that he came as a tourist with family and all that, and they were trying to see the things and get things done. And in fact, I'm not sure. I don't think it mentions this in the book, but the first time our family was in Florence, it was about 1970, and they still had horse carriages by the Duomo, the great cathedral in the middle of Florence, which kind of dates it, because for generations before, people had complained about the manure and stuff in the cathedral square. I kind of liked it since I grew up in Ashland, Kansas, in western Kansas. But that's kind of what is going on. Can you see if I hold?
Oh yeah.
Can you see the cover?
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Well, each of the chapters has got a picture by Lois Mitchell, who Lois Mitchell was the artist for the 3 children's books we've published, and she also did these. Now I'm going to try to hold that up so you can see it.
Yeah. Oh wow.
So that is a picture of Ferdinando II in that piazza, which is the in English the Piazza of the Most Holy Announcement, the Santissima Annunziata, and that becomes this.
Oh.
And so I'd like to read something about when that happens, because that's one of the themes of the book. The old guy, Il Professore, meets someone named Fiammetta. And the name Fiammetta has lots about it in the book, but they meet, and each day they meet for lunch, and then they go someplace in Florence, and then she has to be gone at 4 for some mysterious reason, and that's what happens. But here they've just come into that square, the Piazza Santissima Annunziata, and Fiammetta came to a full stop. She had been doing a kind of sing-song parody of what a tourist guide would say about the square, and then she stopped. The parody was over. She was silent. We then walked slowly into the center of the piazza. She stopped again, but this time she began to twirl around and around, smiling with outstretched arms. I like to think of this as a place for children. It celebrates what they can teach us. The domed church over there remembers the womb that gave birth to the child we are to be like, if we're to be truly mature. The whole space invites us to create a better future. I nodded my head and looked around. But what about the statues? I know, they're a bit out of place from my daydream. The 2 statues of sea monsters need to be taken to a museum for bad jokes. I also think Ferdinando needs to climb down from his bronze horse and go sit in the shade of the loggia. That's kind of like a porch. She pointed to the porch of the Hotel Loggiato dei Serviti with its own version of Brunelleschi's arches. I looked again at Ferdinando's statue. He seemed to be riding his huge horse out of the square toward the cathedral, whose dome could be seen down the street, named after the service at the open south end of the piazza. Fiammetta waved her hand dismissively at the statue and said, "He was made a cardinal in the 16th century at the age of 14. He was never ordained a priest." She told how he became the Grand Duke of Tuscany at 38, shedding his red cardinal's robe when his older brother died. He married advantageously 2 years later. She paused and said, "He did many important things for Tuscany," but she did not elaborate. Fiammetta walked over to the statue and patted the horse. "Don't you think a child should be standing on this horse's bare back, releasing a dove?" I paused for a moment, enjoying the image she'd conjured, then said, "What if the child is receiving the dove?" "Ah, yes, that could be too. That's beautiful." Fiammetta then began to talk about the Ospedale degli Innocenti that had stood next to the church since the 15th century. I'm going to go down a few paragraphs. She returned to where I was standing and came up close, announcing quietly, "I see this whole square as a celebration of children. Those buildings over there, toward the square's open end, should be a school, a Casa dei Bambini, and an art school. The teachers ought to live for free on the upper floor." Fiammetta's daydream was filling the square. Let me show you this picture again of the child on the back of the horse.
Yeah.
To anchor that in the story.
Yeah. What a beautiful and intriguing passage.
Yeah, at the end, the old guy says, "Well, that's it. That's the story I've kept all these years. I still don't understand it. Do you? It was an autumn that saved my life, but now I read it to keep warm in the winter. It's seasoning for my latter years. Perhaps it will be the same for you."
Oh.
I took all the sheets of the loose manuscript up into my two hands and squared them by tapping them on my desk. I then put the faded pages back into the drawer and closed it with a click. I thought I might have a cappuccino and a brioche in the morning.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you for sharing. I'm interested because being your first novel, what was the experience like to write it, and how is it different for you?
Well, I didn't have to put in any footnotes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I didn't use the third person so much.
Mm-hmm.
I was able to use the first person to do the feelings and things, which you don't always get to do in a book, at least directly, in a book of scholarship. And for me, mainly, it was just a good companion.
Yeah.
A really good companion. Yep.
I imagine it will be a good companion to others who get to read it as well.
I hope so.
What godly place story is specifically speaking to you these days, and why?
Oh, you mean these days?
These days. Yeah.
After holding the novel in my hand and I still miss Colleen so much, and trying to figure out what to do when I don't go to dialysis on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, and all the other things. Any of those parables on the top shelf in their gold boxes would work.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason is because what parables are for is to kind of shake you and wake you up and ask you to wonder, because they don't resolve things, they open things, and wondering is when you open up. And And I think that's a good thing on most days, to open up and to get the creative process to move, to carry you through to an evening where there's a soft closure and you can rest.
Yes. Oh, that's beautiful. Well, thank you again. Thank you for the gift that you are to me and to so many others. And thank you for this book and sharing that with the world, among the many things that you continue to share with the world.
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be another novel. There is going to be a theology of childhood yet to come, and I'm working on that now. But I think the novel is one of a kind. So I give it to you if you would like to read it.